Okay, hello. Here's another weapons tips and tricks video for Gen Mom. Um, this is recorded before the rotation that's coming up, and it will be a little in between, not like very beginner information, but also not too advanced. Just helpful things to get used to weapons that you may not usually play. So this is for the rotation that starts on March 18th, 2022. That's what year it is. And the weapons are Mini Splatling, Clash Blaster, L3 Nozzlenose, and Squiffer. Oh, it's actually opening up in like 12 minutes. So first off, we have the Mini Splatling, one of my favorite weapons, and what I'd consider the second best Splatling, possibly tied with the Hydra. It is the baby of the Splatling family. It has a really quick charge and shoots out bullets like that. So quick and short charge. It's very mobile and also outputs a lot of damage, especially for its range. It's like a mid-range weapon. And the charges are so short, so like I said with the heavy Splatling in I believe the first tips and tricks video, when you let go of your charge, what you want to do is start holding your shoot button just so that another charge starts. And as soon as you hear the 2 beeps, you're ready to go to start shooting. Partial charges are still useful. You can get a short burst of a lot of damage with a partial charge, so you don't have to completely charge it up every time. Especially if you're low on ink, the partial charge should be fine. As well, I don't remember if I mentioned this, but this applies to all Splatlings except... well, no, it applies to all Splatlings. The technique to cancel your charge or cancel your firing. So it's not as necessary on this weapon, but more so on the bigger Splatlings. But at any time when you let go and you're shooting, you can sink into your ink and then that'll end your charge. You might wonder why you need this, but it's important sometimes if you're in a really tight situation to get out of your charge sooner than it will finish, because otherwise you'll just be kind of a sitting duck sometimes when you're waiting for your charge to finish. So you charge, you finish off the enemy however much you need to, and then you go into your ink. On. This can sort of lead to a topic that is a little more advanced, but I'd like to talk about it anyways. So there's 2 techniques for movement that you may have heard of. If you haven't, one is called sub-strafing and the other one is called main strafing. And I'll explain that really quickly. So when you're swimming in your ink and you want to change your direction, you'll notice that there's this if you're playing and you try to do this just going up and down out of your ink, you'll notice that there's a slowdown when you're changing direction, like your inertia needs to slow down in a physicsy way. And that's normally what's supposed to happen. But with sub-strafing, what that is when you're holding out your sub-weapon and then you pick an opposite direction to move, there's no change in, or there's no slowdown in inertia. You can just immediately go as fast as you want. And this works in any direction that you want to go in. So I'll try to do a few in a row. So that's without substrafing. And then this is with substrafing. So going between these lines is much faster with the substrafing. It's advanced because it takes a lot of muscle memory to remember how to substrafe. So it's okay if you don't know how to do it or don't do it. It's not absolutely necessary in Salmon. It's helpful, but not as necessary as it is in PvP. But what I wanted to mention is the main strafing, which is when you're holding down ZR for to shoot your weapon. With other weapons you'd be shooting, but with Splatlings you're charging. This also reduces or gets rid of that slowdown from inertia. So when you're a Splatling and you're charging, you can easily kind of do like a light version of substrafing as long as you're holding down your ZR button. And yeah, I don't want to go too much into controller button priority things right now, but I just wanted to mention that can also help you with your movement if you're just holding ZR down all the time while you're playing the Splatling. Okay, so that's it for the Splatling. Our next weapon is, I can get to here, is the Clash Blaster. So another, what I consider baby weapon of the weapon family of the blasters. The Clash Blaster, as you know, is a blaster that shoots very rapidly, sort of short range, and doesn't do a lot of damage. So in Salmon Run, this is not the best weapon. It's not terrible, but it's also not the best. And similar to the Luna, its main job is clearing out the small enemies due to the blast radius that can hit multiple enemies at the same time. As well as what blasters do best is try to take care of stingers and things like that. Otherwise, it's a little difficult taking out other enemies such as steelheads or drizzlers just because the damage output is so low. I guess one additional fact that we can talk about with blasters is in terms of scrappers. Let me see if I can explain this well. So we know that the blaster has a blast radius, and this whole area that's painted is the blast radius where you can do damage. But if you think about it in a 3D space, the top to the blaster is actually an orb or a sphere. So it also has a blast radius damage like front to back. So like if I shoot behind this dummy, I can still do damage. So it's not just left and right, it's also even above or to the side. So you can think of the extra or indirect damage in a 3D space. With that in mind, if you do find yourself encountering a scrapper and there's no one else around, you can obviously shoot it to stall it. But since it's facing you, you can't really do damage to it. Unless you angle your blast just right, then you can sort of shoot behind it and still do some sort of damage. It's still not great damage. But if you're by yourself, it can be very handy just to add on that damage. Maybe your teammates will come back and the scrapper can go down quicker. But that's a fun additional fact about blasters. It applies to all blasters, not just the Clash Blaster. So that's something to keep in mind. So the next weapon is the most difficult, I would say. out of the group, if I can find it. Here it is. The L3, because unlike every other shooter, I guess except for Squeezer, which also has tap shots, this weapon you need to constantly tap in order to shoot the weapon. It'll do a 3-shot burst every tap. And so the trick with L3, along with its older sibling, the H3, is learning the timing of when you can tap and shoot again. And this just takes a bunch of practice. But I can kind of demonstrate what the max speed you can shoot is, which is about that. People have suggested like certain songs that have a certain number of beats per minute that you can remember to remember how fast you're supposed to tap it, but I'm not a big fan of that. Like if you're not really musically inclined and can't remember tempos that well just from memory, then it might not be as useful. So what I would suggest is go slower than you think it's supposed to go, and then try a little bit faster to try to get used to how fast you're supposed to tap the shot. So it's just generally a difficult weapon, but it just takes a little practice and muscle memory. With that being said, one of the flaws that most people have when they play L3 is that they get so infatuated with trying to keep their shot tempo or their shot pace right, that they run out of ink really quickly. So just keep in mind not to get too hyper fixated on getting the tap shots down at the right time. If you go a little too fast and you're stalling, that's okay. Just try to stay relaxed and keep the pace that you want to shoot at in mind. And of course you can always shoot slower than you want to, or slower than the maximum speed, because it's still a good weapon, does good damage, even a little bit slower. The H3 is the really tricky one when it comes to the tempo, but we'll talk about that when H3 comes up in rotation. And then the last weapon, which should have the same sub or special, is the Squiffer. Squiffer is one of my arguably top 3 chargers in Salmon Run. Well, I guess top 4. It's hard to find a bad charger. Only YouTuber is not spectacular, but all of them are. Just like with all the other chargers, find your range with the X. This one has a particularly fast charge time, which is what I think makes it great compared to the other ones. It's fast, it's just as strong as the splatter shot, just a little bit shorter range and shorter charge time. One thing that they added to the Squiffer, which isn't super important for Salmon Run unless you like to hop around, is that for other chargers, like let's take the E-liter since it takes the longest to charge, if you're standing in the air while you're charging, it significantly slows down the charge time. Or anytime you're in the air when you're charging, it slows down the charge time. So for other chargers, it's ideal for you to stay on the ground while you're charging. For the Squiffer, they added an update where no matter if you're in the air or on the ground, the charge time is going to be the same. So I guess in the sense of PvP, it made it more a viable weapon because you have more movement options while you're hopping and shooting. Or it makes it harder for enemies to hit you if you're jumping and shooting. For Salmon, it's not that much more important. It can be handy if you're like you need to fall off something and shoot an enemy or something like that. So that's something that you can keep in mind when you're playing the Squiffer. You're free to jump as much as you want. The charge hold for the Squiffer is not very long. I think Gootuber is the longest one. So keep that in mind, it's probably the shortest one. And I think that's it for all the weapons. And since the rotation did just start, we can do a demo play. So I think I'm gonna be... They might give me the news. Alright, I'll put timestamps so you don't have to sit through the news. This makes my recordings like 30 seconds longer. So I'll upload this, and I'm not sure if it'll be done by the time I have to sleep. But I'll try to get up in the morning if I'm waiting for it to finish uploading. Or I'll just let it upload and I'll let you know that it's uploading, and it'll be ready whenever it's ready. I don't know why I'm talking about this. Like, it'll be like past tense when you start watching it. Okay. So, we'll do one freelance game and hopefully demonstrate some things. I think any of these weapons will be good examples to demonstrate. And then we will call it a video. We got 2 ghosties. My username is Shuberku because it's based off of the music composer Schubert, who is one of my favorite music composers. Franz Schubert. Alright, any Splatling. All these weapons, well, not all of them, but most of them paint fairly well. So in terms of freelance, you know you want to lure bosses as much as possible, but if you are playing in freelance and have a bunch of people who don't know about luring, all you can really do is kind of follow them, do your best to help them survive, rather than leaving them out to die if they didn't lure something. I'm gonna get this Moz. We have another Moz. So Mini can drill through these normal salmon pretty well. It's very useful. I'll try to get this too. We do have quota, it's just a 14 quota, so that should be fine. Since we get quota, it doesn't really matter about luring or anything like that, so I'll just try to get rid of anything I can. You have 2 Moms. Interesting. Oh, I thought I had an egg for some reason. So yeah, just staying safe, not doing anything too drastic. This is a really good set. I don't know if I'll play it tomorrow. I gotta study. Alright, Squiffer, and we have High Tide too. So Squiffer's main goal is to take out like steelheads and get drizzler torpedoes and things like that, though most weapons can do those fairly well. I'm not gonna be able to get that steelhead, we got it. Like that. Just like the splatter shot, it can really weaken the Cohawks. So they're really pink. The key for freelancing on this map is kind of like Lost Outposts. Low tide, you don't want things to bottleneck and for eggs to not be accessible. So sometimes you even have to just leave some bosses alone so that your freelancers can come back. Be good on quota. I'm gonna bomb rush this. I'm not sure which weapons you're practicing with Charger with Jen, but hopefully that went well. It's hopping around for fun. And wave 3. Clash Blaster. We get a Night Wave. Try to pin up these walls. Gonna be Rush or Griller. I am terrible at this map hunt for Grillers, but I can say that the Clash is really good for cleaning up the small fry. So if you do have the Clash on Grillers, try to focus on that when the boss gets stunned by shooting under the Griller. I don't know if that does damage to the actual Griller. I don't know the hitboxes really. There's second Griller. Don't do enough damage to stun it myself. Bomb rush. These are also really good weapons for your freelance friends, so they'll be, for the most part, comfortable, except for the L3, I suppose. We already have quota, so I don't really care where we stall it. This is a little tricky because I'm running out of ink. Right, and if all else fails, if you really need to stall them, you can go on this wall. Just be careful about the small frame. Nice. Yeah, so this should be a really fun set. Of course, every salmon set in Profresh when it gets high enough is difficult, but it should be a good time for the most part. And that will do it for me. As always, if you have any specific questions or requests, just let me know. See the stats. Very nice. And thank you for watching. I will see you another time. Bye bye.